Okay, it's
Okay.
7 o'clock, so
I'm all done.
we'll convene the meeting at 7:02. Has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda and the minutes from the prior meeting, as suggested by Marty's agenda comment? That you look at it beforehand. Are any further comments on the minutes? Has everybody looked through them? That's fine. So we'll approve those and move forward with the agenda and the minutes as approved. There's nobody from the public beyond that. Are there any announcements that anybody wants to make? Announcements? No, well, the conclave is down here, right?
Yes.
So we can pass on to that. Openings and appointments, there's nothing going on that. Action items, we don't have any, so we'll get right down to the conclave, which is the first item. And how many people are going? Wow.
I'm on camera, I'm interested. Edit.
Moving right along. Anybody want to know anything about it? I went last year, if there's one. And I wrote up a report. I'm happy to email it. Anybody would like to see it. Okay. So, the joint powers agreement, which, can we go right into the JPA review of that? Or you have it as a separate item to discuss the agreement itself?
Right. The first one is to discuss the JPA agreement itself. The other one is to discuss what's going on
at the review
advisory committee. So those were two separate things, and Sandy didn't say to take the first one out, so I'm assuming, has everybody had a chance to look over the JPA that can be found on, the original JPA that was on it's on the library's homepage, that was originally done in 1975 by David Saxay?
Yeah, I hear it was in it. Anybody else? Everybody?
I've read it.
You probably know more about it than anybody. You might have to say a few words.
Well, I don't know. I know it. Was a wonderful document in its time, but like our own Constitution, it needs to be updated and brought in with more current. There was no technology and so on. Now, so the current review is the outgrowth, I think, of some problems that took place, and the timeline. Do we have the timeline? Did you get those?
Yes, I have. The timeline only talks about from
a year ago.
From 2011.
Yeah. At 2011, things began to come apart at the seams in the library system, and the commission essentially gave us a deaf ear to the concerns of us here in Guerneville. Angie and I and several others went to those meetings, and this was before you came on board even, I think. I don't think you were at that meeting. Or maybe you had just been.
I just started.
At any rate, and it was discovered that it has been discovered that the JPA is highly flawed in several areas, and that's why it's being reviewed. I think the pressure of this timeline really points that out. That the public is concerned. There are so many areas where the public isn't being treated with respect in terms of being able to carry on a dialogue, a discussion about issues, and this needs to be revisited. And clarified. There are two overriding concerns with the JPA that probably will never ever change. And one of them would be the financial structure, and the other one would be the sanctity of the collections. That they will not be subject to political whim. But the group SOCASOL, some of you are familiar with it, I certainly have a high respect for them. I feel that they've done a marvelous service in researching all of the issues that have come up in the last 2 years and documented them and presented the white paper at the last meeting. Robin, I know you were there, and I thought that their presentation was succinct and well done, and it deserves some respect, I think. And but as to the JPA itself, one of the weakest things that I find with the JPA is that the labs, our own body, are absolutely impotent. They have no power, no authority, no respect even when it comes to the commission at large. And
we listen. We listen.
Yeah, and that's not, I mean, I don't want to be on a board that just
I don't
listens.
agree with you, no respect. I mean, we totally have no respect. But we have never been a decision-making body. We have been advice-giving body. That's what it is, advisory board.
And how much advice have you given?
We have through the years.
Have you?
Yes, they used to come out here and meet with us and talk with us. And
Okay.
since the budget cuts, they haven't been able to do that anymore. They would tell us about the library collection and what the plans were for the future, and we had input.
Well, and perhaps you're satisfied with it the way it is. I certainly am not. No, I think it needs to be changed and updated so that the community that we represent has some clout with the commission. That's really, there's only one sentence in the whole JPA that even alludes to this, and that needs to be strengthened and fleshed out, and I think that's one of the primary things that I hope comes out of this conclave, whether there's white smoke or not.
Well, the conflict and the JPA review.
Yes.
So maybe with that introduction, Elena, can you talk about the JPA review?
I can. I actually was on the review committee at this last meeting and the meeting before, because Julia Fries, who's the JPA commission person, wasn't able to attend those meetings. So I've seen it from kind of a different side than being in the audience. And so let me just tell you, before it gets away from me, what their time frame is for their next few meetings. The next meeting is on May 31st, and they added an hour to it, so it will be from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. They're not sure if it will be in the Board of Supervisors chambers, because somebody suggested it was too small for all the people that sit on the review committee. They were all squinched in, which I don't think was a problem. But, so they might be having it at either the Sheriff's Department meeting room or at the Permit and Resource Management Department meeting room. But they'll put that out there beforehand. But it'll be on the 31st from 2 to 5 p.m. And it will be specifically about the governance of the library system. So this is an opportunity. I think they're setting aside 30 minutes for any of the library advisory boards collectively who would like to stand up and speak about what the library advisory boards think the governance should be. So it is an opportunity to, whether as a group or not,
that you express your opinion on any proposed changes that you think should be made, or any changes that you don't think should be made. So I would encourage this library advisory board to talk, maybe tonight, probably tonight would be the best opportunity to talk about what you might want to say and come up with a plan. It doesn't give you a lot of time. I mean, if all the library advisory boards, I think there's one for each branch. So one for Santa Rosa, but then each of the branches have one. Works out to about 3 minutes each if each library advisory board got up and spoke. So that's the library advisory board time. There still will be public time for people to get up and speak if you want to speak on your own about that. So, so then after that meeting, then this review committee will direct the county administrator and the county council's office to draft a proposed joint powers agreement with the amendments that this JPA review committee has decided are the appropriate amendments. There will be no meetings in the month of June, and then in July, a draft amended JPA will be presented from the county staff to the review committee and the public. So,
Do you know when that is?
I don't know that they've set that meeting yet. They'll have to set it on May 31st. So we'll know then. And then Mike McGuire, I'm sorry?
You said that the new agreement or
The
proposal
proposed.
will be drafted by the county staff, I mean the county council?
County council and the county administrator's office.
Okay, but it won't be any public members assisting in the drafting or anything like that?
No, what they will be doing is taking the information that this powers agreement review committee directs them to incorporate in the draft.
Okay.
So that information will have been gleaned from the public meetings that they've had
I
to
see,
date.
okay.
And what this group has decided, what it agreed on, what were the most important things to.
And do we have a list of these important things yet? But
No, not really. I mean, they have at different times said, we want you to include this, we want you to include that, you need to come up with a proposal on this. And I don't have all my notes with me right now, but probably if you went to look at the minutes from their meetings, there'd be some indication there. There are a lot of things that they initially talked about that they decided really weren't part of the joint powers agreement, that those were things, they're making kind of two lists. One is the joint powers agreement list of things that can be covered in the joint powers agreement, and those are things like, the makeup of the commission, the library advisory boards, what role they play in the whole process, and things like that. And then there's other things that they've spent some time discussing, but they determined, and county council explained, that they're really not appropriate to put in the joint powers agreement, that they have to be in the commission, the library commission's bylaws. So they're making a side list of those things. Those would be recommendations that then would be given to the library commission, however that might end up being, whatever that might end up being, to request and suggest that they amend the bylaws to include those things. Then it's up to the library commission to do that or not. So.
Are you going to make the names of these people, the they that you talk about, are they going to make them available so that we know what people are doing, how people are, position people are taking?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Well, the they, when you have these meetings, will the public be told who's making these decisions?
Yes, because what you should be able to, there should be a list on the JPA website as to who is on this review committee.
Yeah.
And each person on the review committee represents an entity, like the city of Petaluma, the city of Grand Park, the city of Pecati, and then they have either a city council person, in some cases they're city council people, in other cases they're staff. like managers.
But there's no one representing unincorporated West County.
The supervisor, Mike McGuire, is representing the supervisor, the board of supervisors.
Okay, so that's
But-
what we've got. But I mean, that's,
Okay, so you're.
And wait, I'm sorry, and Efren Carrillo is the alternate, but he hasn't had to be there.
Yes.
right. And so I'm just looking at it from, you know, our viewpoint that how much representation is Guerneville getting?
Because the West County unincorporated does have unique and different problems, the rest are all cities.
Yeah, every corporation, is represented.
So the county is representing the unincorporated and the county's
So
position.
they
But that's
represent.
why this is a good opportunity, if Guerneville would like their views expressed, this is a good opportunity on May 31st for this group to appoint one person to, you know, to work up what you want to say and have somebody get up and speak.
Well, I'm kind of wondering, following up on this, as if the county, the supervisors themselves don't have enough problems and things to run through, through the mill already, and then to have them represent us, a library advisory board that compared to, when I'm going right down the list, each city has a representative, they can appoint one. And I think the only thing is it's county of Sonoma overall, but nothing specific to West County. There's nothing. We are not being represented. They're representing the whole county. Granted, Carrillo is a, what do you want to call it, substitute, this alternate, thank you, the alternate on it. Fine, but we don't have anybody representing West County.
It sounds like we have our spokesperson right here.
Yes.
I went to Ed Schoen School.
But could we not ask
Yeah.
that Efren be a part of it, not just an alternate? Is that a legitimate
Well, I
request?
think that vote has failed because they determined at the very beginning who was going to be on it. And so they said there's going to be one representative for the Board of Supervisors. And then each of the cities who are interested is going to have a representative. And then the Library Commission has a representative. But that doesn't mean, I think that people, the role of the public is to get up and speak at each of the meetings and express your opinions, because there's no way that those people even can represent all of their constituents. I mean, people are going to have different opinions. So I think if I were a member of the public, I would be sure to attend those meetings and to get up and say what I think as things proceed, because there's all different subjects that they talk about relating to the library. So I would just encourage you all to, maybe pick your top 3 things and come up with a 3-minute presentation. Because if you put so much into it, people stop hearing. Too much stuff in it. But if you have like a few, prime points that you want to get across and express, this is an opportunity. And then come to the meetings, the follow-up meetings, after they come up with a draft, and stand up and say, I like this, I don't like this, and here's why. Here's why this won't work out here. Here's why it will, and we think this is a better way to go. And I would encourage you to do that.
So were you planning on attending the May 31st meeting?
You want to speak?
Were you
I was commanded to appear.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but I have a feeling that this whole thing is going to get resolved next fall, and there'll be, this is my prediction, there'll be a commissioner for the North County, and there'll be a commissioner in your role, but you will be probably replaced in Sebastopol by somebody that comes from the Sebastopol City Council. And so we will have, so that the North Which ones don't have a representative that Mike is representing? Is it Healdsburg and Windsor and Cloverdale? They don't have.
They're each in a district, so, like Tom Colbert, he is, what is Mike McGuire's district, we're the fifth. The fourth? Is it
Could be
the
the
fourth?
fourth.
Anyway, so Tom is the representative for Cloverdale, Healdsburg, and Windsor.
And Windsor.
Right.
Well,
Although it is, I mean, I think that because the Santa Rosa has actually two representatives, they have the city of Santa Rosa representative and the first district supervisorial district
Right.
representative. So they actually go and participate in Cloverdale and Windsor also to help come out to the breathe a lot.
so we may be fortunate to have your undivided attention here in West County. But that still doesn't address the issue of getting recognition on the commission about the issues that West County faces. And that needs some kind of revision in the governance structure that permits a recall or
A recall of whom, or what?
some way that our democratic system can function at the commission level. That's my big concern. This whole timeline of 2 years, none of these issues were listened to by the commission, because they didn't have to. It's
I'm just a representative from the West County, not recall somebody else.
yeah.
Well, I am a representative.
Yeah.
But you weren't.
And she's been listening to us.
Oh, she has. I have no fault. In fact, I have great praise for what Helena has done. It's just that, that I have a feeling that that's going to change as a result of this JPA review. And
I
that makes
have a
sense.
question, because I know that a lot of people have said, oh, we should have, the commissioners should be elected officials. And I just want to play that out, because somehow, to me, that seems, I mean, I think, what I think could happen, and I have a voice too, I represent all of you, but my goal is to try to make this process work the best way that it can. And so, what I've been thinking recently, because when you start thinking about elections and recalls and that, the first thing I think about is cost. It costs money to have an election.
Yeah.
It costs money to do a special thing and recall people. And I agree that the process definitely needs to be improved, but I'm wondering if, and I agree that the JPA should be reviewed more frequently than every 4 years. I say every 2 years. So I'm thinking that in this first review of the JPA, because it worked well for a long time, why not make a smaller change than to have elected officials take the place of commissioner? And I, it's not that I have a vested interest in being a commissioner. I'm
No.
happy to do it, as long as that's my job. But I'm not trying to make a career of it. But why not make a process in the joint powers agreement that would make the appointing process more responsive?
That's great.
And that could be that the joint powers agreement could be changed to allow more representations of the cities that aren't represented, that have branches in the cities, also get a representative. That the library advisory boards, among themselves, represent one or appoint 1 or 2 people to represent library advisory board positions. That the Friends have 1 or 2 people on the commission to represent their point of view too. And whether all the positions are voting or not, like how in this body, I have no vote in this. But I have an opinion and I get to speak. And then in the JPA, change it so that whoever is responsible for appointing those people have to be more responsive, and that there's a process to remove the representative when things aren't going well.
That's the recall I'm talking about.
Oh, because that's a cheap thing, you don't have to have an election, you don't have to spend
No,
money.
exactly.
You can have Supervisor Carrillo call me into his office and say, hey, this just really isn't working out, and I'm going to replace you. And so that could politicize it to a certain extent, like if he doesn't like what I do, but what I do you all like.
Sure.
I mean, so, but that would be a change that would be less, I don't know.
Costly, well,
Less
sure.
costly, certainly, and more incremental, and uphold the tradition of the JPA also. So I think when you get elected officials involved, I mean, you start spending more money, they need
Yeah.
staff to do their stuff because they don't have time to, I mean, it does take quite a bit of
Oh, yeah.
time to be a library commissioner if you do it correctly, and you're reading the documents, and you're asking questions, and you're attending meetings, and I think I logged about 1,800 miles last year going to meetings.
Yeah. I bet you
So,
did, yeah.
there's hours involved,
Yeah.
and, so that is my suggestion, is that, yes, it should be changed, yes, the commissioners should be more responsive to the public. I totally, I push for public forums, I would like to see more inclusiveness in decision-making from the public. So I think, I do kind of hate to see elected officials become library commissioners. But I think it should be a tighter process and
Yeah.
more responsive.
At the Monday's commission meeting, you did some, you made some good efforts, according to my report.
Oh, you're your spy?
Yes.
On what?
Helena said that the commission revisit earlier white paper and revise it and then resubmit it, and some new ideas reflecting it, et cetera. Not much enthusiasm from other commissioners. And this is the case. This sainted lady has really done a wonderful job of representing us and under very difficult circumstances.
I have to agree with that.
I appreciate
I agree.
that. I always feel like there's much more I could be doing, so.
Are there questions on?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'll mention the person later on, but since one person has left the commission, it seems like there's not getting information, there's not that dissemination from the commission to the public versus Preston Pratt or Seaman County West, the radio, whatever, back when we used to have Channel 50. And it seems like it's now becoming, I don't want to say, the information is not getting out there. We're facing an arid time zone for timing since, I'd say 3 or 4 years now. And I wonder if this is kind of creating a problem. The person I'm talking about is Judge Joe Murphy. When he left as commissioner, as chairman, I worked with him when he was a judge. A fascinating man. But he had been the chair for God, I don't know how long. And then towards the end, he stepped off. We wanted somebody else to step in there. And whenever I ran into him, he loved being on the commission. He worked. We got the information, and he got the, I don't know if it's from him, because I never made an attendance to a commission. But I don't know who kept getting the information out to the public. We had a bigger response from the public because that information was getting out there. What were the problems with the commission? Well, geez, we brought up a problem with the homeless people, or we've got bubble gum under the tables, or whatever. That information was getting out there. And then when he stepped off as he stepped down from the chair, the information just kind of went down, and we're, at least out here, we're not getting the information, whether it's public, and I'm not saying you gotta hurry up and report to everybody individually, but just the general information to the general public has been really slack or lacking, that's the word, lacking to the public. And I wonder if this might be a problem also.
Well,
With the commission, you know, some of the people, well, we've slacked off, we're not getting out there, so you always have that 10% in any organization. I don't care who they are, what the organization, you have 10% that are always gonna be the workhorse, they're always gonna be out there, and you have the 10% that wonder, what the hell are they doing here? And then you have the 80% that they're, you know, they do the various jobs and everything in between. But is there a lack of enthusiasm from the commission? Are they being, there's no support, or they just don't feel like doing anything, or what? And I don't know who the people are, but I'm just trying to get a feel of what the commission, the personality of the commission is.
John, you should go to a meeting. It's a hoot. I mean, in a very sick way.
We actually have, we do have a new commissioner, Paul Heavenridge, and he's brand new. He's from the Petaluma area.
Oh.
And he is, he's very involved in adult literacy programs. He's a very interesting guy, and has only been to 2 or 3 meetings now. You know, John Deloso stepped down because he's a Cotati City Council person and didn't have time to keep doing the commission. But he's interested in, so, you know, I would encourage you, if you have an ability to, you can watch we've had long meetings, but you can watch part of our meetings if you want to, like, fast forward sometimes on video. I mean, on the commission website. So that could really help you have an idea
Of the players and their personalities.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have to say, I think that each of the commissioners tries to do a good job as they see fit. They're good people, and some of them have been on the commission for a couple of years. And you know, I think there's been some newer blood added to it, so I think that's always a good thing, because people ask questions. You know, sometimes things go along, and people don't. They stop asking questions. They think they know about how it works. So I think there's been 3 of us now that are fairly new within the last 2 years, and I think that's always good for a commission to get new blood in, and
Doesn't
you know,
become
like you said, and to ask questions, you know, as new people, and that's what I did when I got on, is I asked a lot of questions because I didn't know. I didn't know how things worked, and it opened a lot of areas for more questions, so.
It seemed to me it used to be covered in the newspaper
Yeah, the
too.
media used to
And
have a
that
lot more
could be
content.
Judge Murphy's influence back then,
Yeah,
because
maybe
I only
so.
knew him slightly, but I had such respect for him. He was such a terrific judge.
Yeah.
But he'd been around for a long time. I think he had a lot of friends at the Press Democrat, and they'd get together and talk about it.
Yeah, it
And
was
that's
just
how it
that-
got on the newspaper.
Yeah, okay, it's one thing, like, say, you're pointing out that, you get online and, you know, fast forward, you know, but I'm thinking about getting it out to the general public so
Yeah.
they know what we are doing here and countywide also, because it's such a unique system, being a library, a countywide library system. And everybody used to get everything, but it was through the media.
Right.
Oh,
Well, and then another thing too is
Am I getting off track here?
A little bit.
Yeah, I just say, if you can, yeah, Bruce.
I was just going to quickly, it sounds like the man that you described had a deep, abiding love
He did.
for the library, and he was willing to fight for it and get the information out. And I think those people probably have passed along away with the dinosaurs or something, you know, because we're in such a changed climate, it seems to me, that we have more, and no offense, but we have more bureaucrats running the show, and, you know, with the green shades and the coin counters, you know, and it seems like there has been a change. Somehow or another, along the way, the great love for the library and making it sacrosanct and building a wall around it and protecting it and fighting for it very deeply seems to have gone by the wayside. But that man that you just described sounded like a saint to me. I mean, he really,
was.
he must have really have loved and fought for it.
Robin, Robin, you had a comment?
I have a question. What's the historical basis for West counties being so underrepresented?
Well, I think it's unincorporated.
Yeah, we don't have the.
So,
Unique in that.
so like Petaluma and Santa Rosa being bigger cities at the time the Joint Powers Agreement was made, got their own representatives on the commission. And it's because probably the size of their cities. I think Petaluma had, a Carnegie, big old Carnegie Library building, and I don't know, I don't know exactly, it was in 74, 75, 76. But at that time, back in the 70s, we didn't have a huge population in the whole of Sonoma County.
That's true.
So that's why they had the representation by supervisorial district. The county has grown significantly since then, so it makes sense to add more representation to the commission. And the county has become much more diverse than it used to be, too. So there should be a change in that, and it should be something that is looked at every couple of years to see if it's working well. Maybe, this process is a really long process. They started it last year. Maybe 2 years is too soon, maybe 5 years is better. Maybe there should be 2 years after there's this first change to see if it works, and then after that, they could go to a 5-year review. Because it's very time consuming to do this, and there's one thing I was going to say about the library has a position that it used to have that's unfilled because we don't have funding. It's at the management level, and it is a public outreach, a public information position, management position, and that could have been the difference too. Back then, when there was more about the information in the newspapers, is with the cutbacks, they didn't fill that position a few years back.
So many of
Before I
these
got
things
on.
have happened because of cutbacks, because we used to have the staff come out, remember? They
Yep,
used to give
yep.
us presentations, we went to the library, we went down and found out how machines work. They took us through everything, it was real.
Almost like a field
When
trip.
was that?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know when it was, but it was a long time ago. We got to work on, was it computers we were working on? Or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great if that could happen.
It was wonderful. And who was the fellow who showed us through? He was in charge of AV and.
Jim Versace,
Hmm?
Jim Versace, is he the
Yes,
one?
that's the one.
He spoke at the last
And they were just so good to us, and that's what I want to convey to Ed. Because of the cuts, we don't have that stuff anymore, but I don't think it means that they don't respect us. We don't get the representation, I agree to that, but.
Well, my only response to that, Arlene, is the fact that when these cuts came, there still was money questionably spent on issues that could have been redirected through keeping the library open on Mondays and scale down some of the very expensive remodels that were done, as well as the furniture that was purchased that by.
But this is
the
an
direct-
administrative thing, this is not.
I understand that, but you see, under those times of crisis, there has to be a mechanism for the public to have input on what kind of decisions are going to be made. Where are our priorities?
I don't think
We
that's our
never got
business.
asked.
I mean, we don't get to go into a corporation or to a
No,
public
no,
school and say, how
I'm
do you
not
order
pro-
your stuff?
I'm not proposing to
Doesn't make sense to me what you're
micromanage,
saying.
not at all. But if a, well, I see where, never
Yeah.
forget.
Let's move on, because we could go for the rest of the night.
I just
Yeah.
don't understand.
Okay, to open the library on Monday, the cost I heard a month ago at the meeting I went to the sheriff's office is $1.98 million. How are we gonna save $1.98 million
That's an erroneous
on
figure.
furniture costs? I don't see it.
No, we're not.
That figure is wrong.
That's what they presented at the meeting, you were
Who?
there.
Who
The
presented?
commission,
Yeah.
they posted it on the board, on the screen there.
But that's been revisited, and it's,
In the last month?
yeah,
I doubt it.
well,
How do you know
that was
that?
2 months ago.
Well, how do you know that?
Well, I don't have the figures with me, but I know it has been, and it's,
Okay.
the commission voted,
I could tell you that at the Monday meeting, there was some discussion on the cost of reopening the library and how most of the commissioners, I think there's one commissioner who didn't feel that it was an issue for her district, for the Sonoma area, that people haven't mentioned to her that it's a big issue, whereas the rest of the commissioners have had people say, it's important, we want the library reopened. And so the rest of the commissioners feel that it's a priority when we get some money. And somebody at the meeting said, well, there's no point in talking about this until we get the money. And I said, well, how do we know how much money we need unless we really pin this down? So the commission is not exactly satisfied with how much it would cost, exactly how much it would cost. You know, there is that figure that was presented at the joint powers agreement. We
That's
had,
awesome.
yeah, and I saw that too. I'm on the commission, and that was from the library director, and it was discussed at Monday's commission meeting. And so the commissioners had questions about, you know, how that figure was made up. So it is going to be an ongoing discussion to try to exactly, and Sandy said, well, I can't exactly give you a figure of how much it would cost.
Well, my point is, say it's $1 million, it'll cut it in half.
was
You're
it
still
was
not gonna make it up
500,000.
on little small things like furniture.
500,000, yeah, you could have gotten that quite simply by not renting that temporary building in Sonoma for the Sonoma remodel. Could have kept the libraries open.
I don't think it can be done. That's your
Well,
opinion.
Anyway, it doesn't make any difference.
No,
We
that-
could
that's
debate it
right.
till hell freezes over and it still doesn't change.
But it's something that the commission needs to keep looking at, and the cost of furniture seems very high, and it is something that the commission needs to discuss again. I was over at the Sebastopol Friends meeting this afternoon, and they want to buy some new furniture, because when they reopened the library, there wasn't enough money to purchase new furniture all around. So they're looking to buy 8 chairs so people can sit and read magazines and newspapers and things like that. And we were told that each of those chairs would be about, $1,000 to $1,500.
Very
Based on what the library is usually.
Sounds like a
right
monkey
now.
wrench for NASA.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm just
Really?
saying that the commission needs to look at that. We need to have that discussion, because maybe in 2008, those standards made sense because the library had more money then. But does it make sense now to spend that kind of money on a chair? So I think all of these things are good questions. It's not going to completely solve it, but if we don't talk about it, we'll never get there.
Well, may I have a question? It seems to me from reading everything that's been in the news and knowing what's happening, real estate is picking up. It seems like we are going in the right direction, and the planning could be taking place, but I think that it's going to come back. And I don't think we need to stew over it too much, because I think it will come. Maybe sooner than we think, maybe like sometime this year even, it could happen. If it turns around, like they say, it's just getting more and more and more sales, and that's gonna be great for the,
Property tax.
yeah, property tax.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen completely this year.
Maybe
We
not,
had,
maybe next year.
We had the fellow that used to work at the county, Mark Walsh, was working to help cover, because we had the fiscal, our financial manager had retired last fall, and so he was doing projections for the coming budget, and I think, I don't have the figure right in front of me, but I think it was like a 1% increase, maybe a little below that in our revenues based on property taxes. And then what do you call it? The money from
The redevelopment.
thank you. The redevelopment funds, they come in sporadically. Like last year, we had 400
We still get those? The governor didn't take them all?
Well, we still get them because
Okay.
some of the old contracts, we got money out of the old contracts, so we
Oh.
still get some of those payouts from the previous contracts.
We've really drifted into the
Yeah.
commissioner's report. Hey, let me try and wrap up the Brown Act thing. Who were you gonna have talk about that?
Whoever has the most knowledge of the revision in the Brown Act, it's just that if the Library Advisory Board receives a letter from a patron, we need to pass that letter on as soon as possible, before 30 days, to the commission, correct?
Well, to Sandy.
To
and,
Sandy?
and, yeah, let me know what's happening. Because there's timeframes involved in responding. So we get a letter, if you get a letter from the public saying you're in violation of the Brown Act for something,
It has to be addressed immediately.
it needs to be addressed, but there's certain protocols to do it. So it's good, they'll get county council involved in it, so that nothing goes haywire. Because there's something that could lead to attorney's fees if it's handled incorrectly. So the best protocol is let Mari know. Mari will pass it on to, and don't respond to it.
Have we ever had at this library a Brown Act violation letter? No.
No, not in the 10 years and 2 months that I've been here.
Yeah, no, public.
Probably.
Well, yeah, once in a while we have
Yeah.
public, but we always advertise, don't we? Don't you put it up somewhere?
Yes, I put it on the bulletin board
Yeah.
72 hours prior to
You
the
only get in
meeting.
trouble when you have a meeting without letting people know
Right.
and shutting them out.
And I think the other danger for this group too, because I know some of you are on that book group too, and I don't know.
Tomorrow at 12:30.
Yeah.
Half of us will be
So
there.
it's important that you don't talk about your library advisory board business at your book group meetings, because you could have a quorum, I don't know how many of you are on that.
We barely have time to talk about it.
Okay, but I'm just saying, if you had a quorum, it could be a violation of the Brown Act, so. And serial meetings, you all know about serial meetings, right? Like if you talk to her about something, about the library advisory board, and she talks to you,
Right.
and then, and it goes around and everybody ends up knowing about it, that's a serial meeting and that's forbidden from the Brown Act also. Anyway, we just needed to let you know.
It happens mostly through email. That's another.
Oh, that's the same way,
That's a
yeah.
serial thing.
Serial meeting, don't do it.
Okay, so we can move on to reports and updates, and we're right in the middle of the commissioner's report, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm taking up way too much time, so I would encourage you to watch the videos. They're supposed to be hooking up, doing some sort of